Well, apologies if I make any agonised cries during the course of this video. I somehow put my back out this morning, and so sitting still in any position for any given length of time is a bit awkward at the moment. But anyhow, never mind that, because we've got another couple of vintage White Dwarfs to go through, starting in June 1983. This rather fetching. I guess this is like an Odin kind of cover. It's a guy, he's got one red eye, there's some kind of raven up here hiding behind the lettering. Yeah, he's got a very fine sword and a very fine steed there. Now normally, when I'm doing these videos, I skip past this bit that's got all of the sort of adverts in it, but on this occasion, I wanted to just stay here a minute, because it occurs to me that a lot of these shops are probably, in fact most of these shops, in fact probably almost all of these shops are no longer in existence, but they may have been favourite haunts of yours back when you were getting into the hobby. So I'm going to do a shout out to some of these game shops that are advertising in the front of an ancient White Dwarf, and if you have any particular knowledge of these shops, please comment. It'd be nice to know if some of them are still going. In an age where indie game shops are not that widespread, it would be nice to see some more of them. It would be great if some of these shops were still carrying on, or if you had some nice stories to tell of some of them. So, the first one that we've got here is Fantasy World. This is in Stoke-on-Trent. We've got Clyde Models, that's in Glasgow. We've got the interestingly named Warhammer Games, which I don't think was anything to do with being a games workshop, although that is, where's that? 10 Skerry Hill, Mansfield. We've got Book One. I guess that's probably more of a bookshop than a game shop, but that was in West Lothian. We've got Swansea Models and Hobbies, DW Games Coventry. That seems to be about it. So, do you remember any of those game shops? Let me know if you have fond memories, or even not fond memories of any of those. Now we've got another of these page adverts for miniatures, which doesn't have any photos of the miniatures, of course. It just has a nice Tony Ackland sketch in the corner here, and stats for running half-orcs in your game of Warhammer 1st edition. Then there's this very interesting article to start off with here, Law of Nature. Now this, it describes itself as looking at logic in fantasy worlds, and it picks up a couple of points and interestingly applies them to Dungeons and Dragons type fantasy worlds. But it's interesting because that very logic in fantasy worlds is what turns me off a lot of fantasy worlds, including a lot of those that come under the D&D umbrella. Because he talks about realism and creating this kind of not real world, but this world that has a natural sort of structure and order to it, where not just anything can happen because of the way that the world is structured and the principles. And it's very interesting. It's talking about creating a world based around particular beliefs and circumstances, around particular sort of timescales of things happening, whether players are more sort of caught up in bigger things that are going on. And that's something that I really like, particularly from thinking about things like the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Quite often felt like your little characters were really just being thrown into some bigger plot, and we saw a lot of that with the Power Behind the Throne book series, that your characters were just being thrown in and they weren't the main protagonists, and really what happened to them was quite inconsequential compared to everything else that was going on. And that kind of gaming I really like, and I don't like the kind of high-powered superhero gaming, if you will, that I feel at least is quite prominent in later versions of D&D, if not at this time. But I don't know, I think it's debatable as to whether that's in D&D at that time, but I've sort of digressed a bit there. The thing that really bugs me about kind of D&D-ish style worlds, and I would include the Warhammer world in this, is that it's kind of an anything goes world by itself, and that's cool because as a GM or somebody who's running the games or building your collection, you can pick which bits of those you want to use. But it also, if you go in and use everything, it just feels like some weird mishmash of anything that anyone could possibly imagine, and I find it a bit bland because of all the stuff. So like, the thing that I really like about things like, say, Tolkien's world is that there are very strict limits. You would not expect to walk around Middle-earth and see a Pegasus or a unicorn or a griffin. They're kind of fantastical creatures that you wouldn't find there because they don't fit in with the kind of natural order of things. That things are quite regimented, and I like my fantasy worlds to be like that, quite regimented, where you can't sort of throw anything on the table and expect it to stick. So I like this article, but I don't think it goes quite far enough. Then this is almost an example of what the guy's talking about in this first article. This is looking at barbarian cultures in RuneQuest and giving them some kind of realistic grounding. This is an Ian Marsh article, but he's very much echoing what Christopher Hunt was saying, and he's taking barbarian cultures and he's rooting them in the kind of lifestyle that those cultures would have, the kind of animals that they would be farming, the kind of well, not farming, but herding in this case, in a lot of cases. The kind of culture that would develop around that, the kind of belief system that would develop. So this is quite interesting. Then we've got another one in this beginner's role-playing series, this time looking at some sci-fi games. It looks at Traveller, of course, lots and lots on Traveller. I can't remember actually if it picks out the fact that you can die in character creation in Traveller, but it should do because that's one of the major features of Traveller. And then Space Opera that I've never heard of, Star Frontiers, Laserburn, although as this points out that's a bit more of a tabletop game, but it just shows that at this era there's a bit of blurring. I know it caused a bit of controversy when I said in the last video that the early Warhammer games were roleplay games, but I stick by that. I think they very much came, although the kind of mechanics of the game are very tabletop war games of the era. The way that it's approached feels to me very much like it's being approached from a character and narrative driven basis rather than a historical reenactment basis, and so I think that they are very much mass battles set in a roleplay world using roleplay characters, and Laserburn here offers some good basis for that. It's interesting that Laserburn was a game that was picked up and drawn on very heavily, creating the later Inquisitor tabletop miniatures game that Games Workshop did, which I think again is very much a tabletop role play rather than a strict war game, and Star Trek role playing game here as well. Some more reviews, but we haven't got time to go through absolutely everything. Some more nice pictures of some miniatures here. Again, we've got some Citadel miniatures. Let me read through, what have we got here? Some Asgard, some Essex, some more Citadel. What's this very... I'm trying to find out what's the very happy looking centaur guy in figure 5. If Mike was here, he'd tell me straight away. He's an Essex, there you go, he's an Essex centaur. Apparently they were very impressed with the statuesque nature of his pose there. Well, good, I'm glad. These are also Essex, these sort of scaly orcs up here. They're still available, obviously. Essex still going. They've got one of those websites where you have to know what you're looking for, because good luck looking at any of the pictures on their site. They still haven't discovered digital cameras for most of the Essex website. I'm not a big fan. There are some nice dwarves, nice Bob Wally dwarves in the Essex stable, but generally not a fan. I know that will be Another controversial thing, excellent. Well, it's good to be controversial, isn't it? And then here's a book review page with a big splash Heretics of Dune here, but actually most of this page is given over to the reviewer, who I can find here somewhere. Dave Langford, there you go, Dave Langford, is largely given over to his great big review of Battlefield Earth, which he was not a fan of. I can't say I've read it, I know I've heard of it, but yeah, it's pretty scathing. Should be popular with everyone who disagrees with all Langford reviews. Where's the good quote? Particularly offensive is Hubbard's introduction, trying to rewrite history and establish him as a major figure in Golden Age sci-fi. Wrong! Why do you think he's been out of print? He further explains that this book is real science fiction with plausible science, no fantasy rubbish. Examples of plausibility. 1. Cyclops have a different periodic table. 2. Their word's entire atmosphere explodes on contact with uranium. 3. The instantaneous conceptual knowledge transmitter designed for alien brains that happens to also work on humans. 4. They build tough armour. Here was a mark where an atomic bomb had hit it. 5. Someone dissects the cyclo and looks at the bits with an optical microscope. Their structure isn't cellular. Viral, yes, viral. A planet-busting atom bomb explodes. Pause. A second bomb, which was sitting right next to the first, explodes. And so on and so forth. He really obviously had a lot of fun pulling this apart. He does then mention Heretics of Dune, but also mentions that he stopped reading with Children of Dune, and is probably glad that he did. So, excellent positivity there. This is the last part, I think, possibly there's one more, of Castle of Lost Souls that we are going to do at some point. The next point of Thrud the Barbarian, where his task is to deal with the Beast of Gore, which he does, obviously. Here's a Empire of the Battle Throne Techumel scenario for RuneQuest, but optionally it says that you can run it for any fantasy setting. What to say about this one? Don't know. Actually, I can't remember very much about this one. It's about cults. Probably all I need to say about that. Here's an interesting article on invisible creatures in D&D. Yes, in D&D and AD&D. Two different types of. One's a construct, a kind of invisible construct that can be summoned up, and the other is a race that plays on invisibility. Yeah, interesting ideas. Travellers, hooray. Some more adverts. This is quite interesting. This is motivations for characters in D&D, so in case you were, or in fact I guess for any role-playing game, in case you were short of a motivation for your character to be involved, here's some that you can generate. And here are some more shops, so just to round this off with some more game shops. Games People Play, Notting Hill Gate, London. Tabletop Games, Nottingham. The Gamekeeper, Oxford. The Gameskeeper, sorry. Magpie Models and Collectors Shop, Leeds. Lost Worlds, Altrincham, Cheshire. Crackers Game Shop, Taunton. Oh, I could go and see if I can find it. I guarantee that one's not there anymore. Medway Games Centre in Kent. Ritz Toys in Slough. Otherworld Artifact. Oh no, that's a shop, obviously. Zap in Manchester. Unicorn Games in Catford, and Just Games, Bower Street, London. So, do you know any of those shops? Let me know if you do. Oh, here's some more. Warlord Game Shop, London Road, Leon C. the Toy and Computer Shop in Dublin, Not Just Stamps in High Wycombe, the Tin Soldier, that's a miniatures manufacturer, Stationery and Games in Blackpool. There you go. Lots of independent shops that very sadly probably no longer in existence. Right, let's turn to 10 years ahead, June 1994, and we can see from the cover, oh yes, this is going to be my favourite Blood Bowl edition. You know how I feel about Blood Bowl, I've mentioned it previously. But actually, this is a better edition than I might have thought, because yes, it does talk about Death Zone, Blood Bowl campaigns and extra characters and all the rest of it. But then we come to Golden Demon 1994, and here is a look at the winning entries from Golden Demon 1994. Now, I'm used to looking at the entries in the Fantasy Miniatures books, and this is obviously quite different. Things have moved on from the crazy do what you will with Lichen entries of the previous decade, and now we are very much the bold colours of 4th edition Fantasy, 2nd edition 40k. Something that somebody used as a criticism in my hearing a little while ago of somebody else's painting was that it was very good painting, but it was basically just copying the images that were in White Dwarf. And I can't really comment on that, because that's what I do for my Hero Quest set. I've very much just gone to the images that were in White Dwarf on the box art and things, and have copied those images. And actually I think there's quite a degree of skill in copying the heavy metal images of the time. And let's face it, everyone gets their inspiration from somewhere. So if it's not the pages of White Dwarf, it might be a comic, or it might be a uniform of a particular era or something. You know, if I'm painting my Beastmen as Swiss Guards, that I'm still taking the colour scheme from somewhere. So, you know, nothing's original. If these people want to paint exactly the same way as these figures are painted in White Dwarf and do a stonking job of it, I'm gonna celebrate that. I do also like to celebrate the individuality, and there's obviously a lot less of that here than there was in the 80s Golden Demons. Although this John Toyer battle scene here goes somewhere near to looking back to the 80s. It's got that sort of very textural base, more washed out colours, I guess, than the very bold primary colour schemes of a lot of these entries. But also there were probably a lot of these entries, and the people who were judging, Mike McVie, but I guess with some others, pulled out the ones that looked like the image that Games Workshop were going for at the time. I imagine there was quite a bit of that going on. Some 40k, here's the Razorback coming out, using the Razorback in 2nd edition 40k. And then we get to another great article with Mike McVeigh. Here's the first of the modelling guide articles. This one looking at converting figures to match artwork. So here's this Dire Avengers Exarch to match this Jeff Taylor image. I've seen a very nicely painted take on this. Not that Mike McVeigh isn't, but he's obviously painting this as a tabletop figure rather than doing it as a sort of battle scene. But yeah, nice look at converting miniatures into artwork with this classic Blood Angels captain as well, step by step. Here are the models that I used, here's me sawing them apart, here's me making my finished model. It's nice, it's good to see this kind of, well, plus it encourages people to buy 4 or 5 models in order to make one model. So obviously Games Workshop are making some money out of it, but that kind of modelling encouragement for figures and for scenery. That's really iconic for me of White Dwarf of this era. It's all about giving you the figures and then saying, this is your world, go and customise it and do what you will with it. And if you want to paint it exactly the same as the models that you see in these pages, do. And if you don't, that's also totally fine. And Revenge of the Doom Lord from the Undead Army book is in here as a battle report, and I'm going to be reading this through because I know for a fact that this battle is being fought at Bring Out Your Lead this year, and if I do jump in on one side or the other, it'd be interesting to read this account and see how well or otherwise it goes. I think this is an undead victory in this version, but I also think that the Empire troops hold their own pretty well right up to the end. So yeah, it'd be interesting to read that one and compare with how it goes. And then we're into the back with some more Eldar, and some Orcs, magazine catalogue pages, Man of War pages, Gary Morley Undead. Interesting, these raids, I often mock the figures of this era, as you all know, for being sort of two hands out in the air star jump style, and there are some of those here, but my favourites from here are the ones where you've got bits going across the body, and you'll see that particularly in here. So these two banner bearers, for example, were very much that sort of YMCA pose that I mock a lot, but this one with the banner going across, really nice dynamic pose, and the same with these whites. You know, a lot of these swords in the air just look quite static, whereas as soon as you bring the weapon across, it's dynamic, and that's interesting for me as a sculptor to pick up on, that although these are the same sculptors sculpting in the same period, just that very simple breaking of that flat figure with something coming across the body suddenly makes a huge amount of difference. And of course the war wagon and the steam tank, because it's an edition with an Empire army in it. So there we go. That is this month's White Dwarfs from 1983 and 1984. Sorry, 1984 and 1994. I think I've been saying 1983 and 1993 throughout, but they're not. 1994. I'm just going to check this. Yes, 1994. Got my years right. It's always hard going around Christmas, you know. So yeah, that's White Dwarfs for this month. Now, I've been doing weekly videos on YouTube for over 2 years now. So it was a great thing to do during the pandemic because I had a bit more time to be able to set things up, and it was a good way of keeping in touch with people. You'll know things have been a bit busy the last 6 months or so, and I think it's time for me to take a little bit of a break from doing some videos. So I'm going to hopefully go back to weekly videos, or at least bi-monthly videos. At the very least it'll be a monthly video, but it'll be more often than that for the next few months. But the rest of June, the rest of this month, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take some time off. I've got lots more things I want to do videos on, so I will be back before long with something else, but I'm just going to have a bit of a break for June, and then I'll see you for another White Dwarf in July. So take care, and I'll catch you again.